Listen up or run for cover. Dropping knowledge from the people who have it to the people who need it. The real Bradley is dropping
What it is, Bradley, back again with another episode of Dropping Bombs. Today in the studio, I've got a real badass, folks. Akshay Nanavati. What's going on?
Not much. Great to be here. Thanks for having me on the show, my friend.
My pleasure, man. When I saw your book title, I thought, man, this has got to be interesting. You authored a book called Fearvana.
Yes, sir.
Now, listeners, if you haven't read Fearvana, I highly suggest you do so. It ultimately shows you some, and I'm quoting, revolutionary science of how to turn fear into health, wealth, and happiness. Because you've done it, correct?
Yes, I have.
Now, you're also a Marine.
Yes, I am.
Went over there to the Iraq War for a couple of tours, right?
One tour in Iraq.
Just one?
One tour, yeah.
One's enough, isn't it?
One was enough.
Diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder, came back, basically turned your shit around, and now you're out there on a mission to help other people figure out the game and live limitless lives.
Live limitless lives, live more blissful lives, and transform that suffering that we all go through into experience of bliss.
And you got the Dalai Lama giving you a little note on your book, so you must be friends with the old Dalai Lama.
I wish I could say that, but it was just reaching out to him, sharing my story, and I was really blessed that he wrote the foreword for the book.
Yeah, and you got a lot of big names on here promoting this book.
Yeah, I was very humbled by those endorsements.
So here's my question: Fearvana, like fear, V-A-N-A, Fearvana. How do you turn fear into health, wealth, and happiness? Because too many people out there fear a lot of things, and it causes them to literally stay limited in a scarcity mindset, and somewhat if stuck, depressed, average.
Yeah, I get it. I've been
nothing good. And it's the fear. I always tell people, man, you're not doing that because you fear judgment, or you're not doing that because you fear this. It's always fear. Yeah. So you figured out a way to turn fear and turn it into health, wealth, and happiness?
Yeah.
Got to hear how.
Absolutely. Because, that's like you said, fear is the number one obstacle that's stopping us from getting to where we want to go. But the fundamental problem is that fear is demonized as something negative. We live in a world that says things like fear, stress, anxiety. These are all bad emotions. And on the flip side, there are good emotions. But through my own journey in healing from PTSD, depression, navigating just fear in all kinds of environments, from war zones to climbing mountains in the Himalayas, to skiing across polar ice caps, to cave diving, to writing a book, to building a business, everything worthwhile I've done has been absolutely terrifying. And the idea is you cannot have something you've never had before or be someone you've never been before unless you do something you've never done before. And with that means you are going to have to take a risk to evolve. And with risk comes fear. That's the brain's natural response to doing something you've never done. So why do we demonize the emotion? So fundamentally, the problem is you will hear this nonsense. A lot of people say, like, be fearless, don't be scared. You're going to feel fear. You're going to feel fear of failure. You're going to feel fear of judgment. You're going to feel fear of this, that, and the other thing. Feel the fear. It's okay. When you stop demonizing it, then you can actually work with it. The fear of fear is the problem, not the fear itself. I'll give it as an example. I worked with somebody who said to me, I'm just waiting for the fear to go away so I can quit my job and start my business. Because he believed he should be fearless. And I said, that's your problem. You're waiting for the fear to go away. Instead, you want to use the fear. So even writing a book on fear, I was terrified. I was terrified of writing a bad book that people would think is garbage. You're putting yourself out there with your book, right? Because I was scared, I studied from people to write a good book. I always like to say that fear propels you to prepare. If you use it, it propels you to prepare. So I understood. Why am I afraid?
Say that again.
Fear propels you to prepare. So I understood. What am I scared of? Why am I scared? What's the worst case scenario?
You don't mind if I drop a bomb now and again, do you?
Go for it.
I don't want your PTSD to come back.
I love it, bro. Drop those bombs. Yeah, so fear propels you to prepare. And I used the fear. I understood, why am I scared? What's the worst case scenario? How do I prepare for the worst case scenario? So I studied from authors like Jack Canfield, Tim Ferriss, to write a good book. And I must have trashed about 100,000 words worth of work, like months of work. But because I was scared of writing a bad book, I ended up writing a good book. So fear allowed me to do something better. That's just one example.
Yeah, no, that's a great example. I'm just letting it sink into the listeners. Because again, I mean, I don't remember what podcast or where I've said it before, but I believe I've said the same thing. Not as good as you just did.
Oh, I'm sure you said it great.
No, but I meant and said the same thing.
Yeah.
Someone said something about fear. No matter of fact, I have a video I'm going to show you before you leave.
Okay.
Where I said the exact same shit. I said something to the effect of use the fear. Like, you're not going to get rid of fear. Fear's not going anywhere. Exactly. Everyone's always going to have fear, but use the fear or change what you fear. So in other words, like a lot of times people fear what will happen if I try and fail. Yeah. And I always say, just fear what will happen if you don't try and stay the same. Exactly. Like, you're just changing what you fear. So I'm saying basically what you're saying. I just didn't say it as well as you, but it needs to sink into the listeners. Why? Because, dude, if you can literally master what you're talking about, dude, you're going to be, it's going to be like night and day difference.
Absolutely.
If you can just master that. If they buy this book, Fearvana, where do they get it, by the way? Amazon and all that shit?
Amazon.com, yeah. It's available in Kindle, hard copy, Audible. All the profits are going to charity. Really some beautiful causes we support as well.
Can they go to fearvana.com?
Fearvana.com. You can find me at fearvana.com, where we deep dive into a lot of other stuff, expand on some of the learnings in the book as well.
Akshay Nanavati. What? Akshay Nanavati. What is that? An Indian name?
Indian name. Actually, my name means invincible. Ironically enough.
Cool. That's
so
cool.
far, it's stayed true because I've done a lot of dangerous things in my life.
So are you out there just trying to embrace fear? Are you trying to out there just scare the shit out of yourself? What are you doing? Like, what would you say you went cave diving?
I've been cave diving.
That's ridiculous,
caving.
dude. I call that spelunking.
Yeah.
You're a spelunker?
Yeah, I've done that. Yep. It is terrifying. Crawling into tight spaces is terrifying.
No. I ain't doing it.
It is very
and then in the
scary.
Marines, you said you were the dude out front of the Land Rover or whatever they're called.
So our vehicle convoys, yeah. One of my jobs in Iraq was to walk in front of our vehicle convoys. Every time we got to a danger zone, like a bridge or anything, one of my jobs was to walk in front of our vehicles, looking for bombs to make sure they don't, before they could blow up our vehicles.
Well, why wouldn't they just fucking send out a dog or a damn fucking drone or something? Why a human being?
Because we were out on missions every single day, and I mean, we were out the wire pretty much every day for 7 months, and just the nature of it. So what our goal was, when we found bombs, then we would call EOD, which is explosive ordnance disposal, and they would come in and usually use robots or something to detonate it or take care of it. But
now, do you think that's sufficient? Like, again, sometimes military intelligence, that's like an oxymoron.
I hear that, yeah.
Yeah, so it's like, dude, why wouldn't you just have the dude out front looking for the bomb be EOD?
Because it's just the nature of resources. I mean, the EOD had to take care of bombs all over the entire AO's area of operation through multiple areas. So EOD was doing enough. We were out there doing all kinds of missions. So you just never know. I mean, we were going into cities.
But if you only saw them and then had to stop and call them, all you were is a spotter. Like, I would have just taught the EOD people how to spot their own bombs and had you being used somewhere else.
But EOD was trained in bomb disposal, and they were doing it for not just our unit, right? Like, there's plenty of units around our area. So they were...
So you never had to de-arm it?
No, not de-arm it. Ideally, you want to find it before it blows you up, obviously.
Well, sure. Now, how many people walked out in front and accidentally stepped on one?
Well, thankfully, in our battalion, nobody was killed. We did have a vehicle got hit with an IED, but thankfully, nobody got killed.
And it's IED.
Improvised explosive device.
Yeah, I keep calling them IUDs.
No, IED.
So they had you out walking in front, finding the bombs, which is obviously a little bit nerve-wracking.
Indeed.
Did they train you to see things better than everybody else? Like, why you spotting bombs? How did they train you for that? Or do they just say, get out there and walk, son?
It was two Marines, because if, let's say, for example, a bridge, one Marine would take the left side, the other takes the right. So ultimately, I guess I got placed in a role where that became my job. It was one of many other jobs I had throughout the deployment, but I was happy to do it. The mentality I went to war with was I'd rather it be me that get killed than somebody else. So that was not an issue for me.
Why would you think like that?
Because I didn't want my fellow Marines to get killed.
Well, now see, That's very nice of you. However, like if I were there, I would rather they all get killed besides me. I wouldn't be the one that says, well, if anyone's going to die, it's going to be me. I'd do the opposite.
I mean, there's no right, wrong or about it. But to me, I had lost a friend before I even went to Iraq. So having lost a friend in the war, I struggled with the idea that even because he was a very close buddy of mine, and I had always felt like we should have gone to war together. And we did. We volunteered to go to war together every chance we could get. But one summer while I was vacationing in India, he ended up finding a unit to go with. And because he got promoted to corporal, and as a result, he was in a seat that got hit with an IED, and he was killed. And I always felt like I should have been there and got promoted instead of him, because when we trained together, I would beat him on the rifle range or beat him on the physical fitness test. So I wanted to get, I would have rather gotten that promotion instead of him, and been in that seat instead of him. So when I did go out to, when I finally got my opportunity, if you want to call it that, to go to war, I went out there with that mentality that I don't want that to happen again, where somebody else, I mean, and I realize, admittedly, it's a naive perspective because you can't control war. War is unpredictable. I mean, you're walking down the street, a bullet goes where it goes. You can't control whether it hits you or somebody else or an IED. You can't control that. You do the best job you can to prevent it, but you can't control it. And so I admittedly knew that, but nonetheless, I would have rather it been me than anybody else, because I believe to me, that's the greatest act. I mean, even what I do now, it's living for something greater than myself. And self-transcendence, transcending above the self in service of something greater, is the best way to live, the way I see it.
Yeah, well, I agree.
But it doesn't have to be to death. I get it.
Well, again, theoretically. But what in that last statement, who says the other soldiers are better than you? Like in other words, if I'm just being honest, because again, a lot of people will lie, a lot of people will bullshit.
That's true.
You know, if I'm sitting there with my children and somebody busts in the door and says one person in this room is going to die, and my children are there, I'll take the bullet. Okay. If I'm out there with a bunch of Marines just as trained as me, I don't know them. I mean, we're all Marines, brotherhood and all that shit, but you know, I don't necessarily know them, and they busted in the door and said, one of y'all some bitches are going to die, I wouldn't be volunteering, so no one else would die. I would say, I would see if I could disappear real quick to be the last one to be seen. Now, is that a pussy? No, I think it's intelligence. I think it's a high level of self-preservation instinct. However, I've never been in the war. I know if you're in a foxhole with me, I got your back no matter what, even if it kills me. Like, I'm all about that. Mm-hmm. But when it comes down to a choice, like someone just flat out says, hey, one of the five of you are going to die, who's it going to be? I'm not raising my hand. I'm going to be like, anybody? Anybody? Anybody?
I understand.
It ain't going to be me.
I can't sit here and say what choice I would make in that situation, especially today. I can't sit here and say that now.
But your PTSD had something to do with you thought that should have been you. You wish it was you instead of someone else.
Yeah. I mean, I'm
grateful. That's the part I don't get. I'd never want that.
I think that survivor's guilt, which is not just veterans who feel it. Anybody who's often lost somebody close to them, they kind of have that question: why them instead of me? I just think it's an expression of love, you know.
Yeah.
Like, and it's the same thing with, going back to fear, guilt. Like, people often say things like fear, stress, anxiety, guilt, anger, that these are negative emotions. But the reality is, there's no bad or good emotions. They're only emotions, and it's up to us to decide what we do with them. It's not a bad emotion or a good emotion. There's just.
Well, jealousy.
I don't think it's a bad emotion.
If you use it right, what I just dropped the bomb over is again, it is all perspective. Dude.
Exactly.
It doesn't mean it's a bad one.
Exactly.
What makes it a bad one is the way you use it,
Exactly.
or what it does to you.
Exactly.
So if jealousy caused you to make an extra $30 million, that's a good emotion.
Yeah. Jealousy, I think, is a sign of where you want to go. It's a compass to me. Jealousy is a compass. If I'm not jealous of the grandmaster of chess because I have no desire to be the grandmaster of chess, right? I might be jealous of the guy who's running better than me, who's making more money than me, and I see that, but I use my jealousy in a way, okay, hey, that's a compass to me, that's what I want, and I'm going to chase that relentlessly.
Well, what if, like, you and your girl went to a bar and there was some dude at the bar and she never got giddy, and all of a sudden you just saw her like just very uncomfortable and flirty. You get jealous?
I'm actually very confident in who I am, so I don't worry about that anymore.
But do you get jealous, or did you get jealous?
I don't get.
See,
in the past, I did. When I was in college, I did. Today, I don't get jealous.
I need to figure out how to get rid of that because, dude, jealousy is an ugly trait.
It can be.
And I don't know why and I'm confident. I just don't. I do get jealous a little bit.
It might be something that happened in the past that maybe triggers that, That's often where an emotion shows up in certain contexts.
And it's not jealous like if you had Ferraris, and I never get jealous for success. I never get jealous for a lot of things. But if my girl likes you, like in a
I got you.
intimate way, or wants to like you in an intimate way, or finds you extremely attractive where, oh my God, she can't help herself, I'd be jealous.
Yeah, I mean, it shows up in different contexts for different people, but that's exactly the point. It's not bad or good or right or wrong.
So teach me how to get rid of that jealousy.
Maybe the issue is not about getting rid of it. Like sometimes I get terrified doing most of the things I do. I don't care about getting rid of it.
You're saying use it.
Use it.
So how would I use it? Like to go to the gym and become better. So
maybe there's some insecurities you have about yourself. Maybe it's about your relationship. So maybe you can understand. Maybe there's not. I don't know your relationship, so this is not a judgment statement. But maybe there's some trust issues that you got to work through. Maybe there was some stuff. Maybe there was some stuff that happened in your past relationships that's triggering it. So there could be a lot of that stuff that's just not worked through. So like with my guilt, I think I was telling you earlier that I had until I learned to work with it. It didn't go away, and it's still not entirely gone away. But I didn't care about getting rid of it. Everybody told me, therapist, this, that, and the other person, you shouldn't feel guilty. Don't feel guilty, and that's nonsense, right? We tell people all the time, like, don't worry, don't stress, don't be afraid. We tell people, don't feel what you feel. Feel everything you feel. If you feel jealous, understand it, get to know it, then use it. My fears have not gone away.
Just embrace the jealousy as I smash his head into the bar stool.
That could be one way to handle it. Crush that man. Exactly.
Yeah, I'll teach. I'll make you to where she doesn't like you anymore.
Yeah. Smash his face and problem solved.
And I'll tell you, jealousy will cause a lot of that violence too. Oh yeah, definitely can. Like there's people in prison right now because they walked in on their girl getting the old ham bone.
I've had a girlfriend cheat on me in the past. It was nothing pleasant about it. So
did it bother you?
It certainly did.
How do you know she did it?
I literally saw it.
Ooh, that's even the worst.
That was horrible.
And you didn't get pissed at all?
I was not the person you see today. For one, I was deeply insecure. I was a big pansy compared to who I am today. I would not have handled it the same way that I had today. But it crushed my soul at the time. This was
what were you thinking?
I joined the Marines. It was heartbreaking, Do
you think like inadequate? Do you think like damn? I wonder does he hit that shit better? What's going on here?
Yeah, why did I deserve it? All this shit about your own insecurities and
right now there's 1 million people listening to this going, dude, that's me.
But today I would not be least bit phased if that happened. Least bit phased. I mean, it might if somebody I love, it might hurt me for a minute, but in the sense I wouldn't doubt myself the way I did back then. It would be their loss, not mine. Because I've developed enough confidence in who I am today that I know. And this is coming out another thing that is not negative. Ego is something demonized, right? We say ego is bad, ego is the enemy.
I always say that.
Garbage.
Ego is not your amigo.
I will respectfully disagree. I think ego, like anything, can be used productively. If you want to be great, you have to know you're great. You have to own your greatness. You look at athletes are the perfect example of ego.
But in that confidence, that's not an ego.
Depending, again, so there's a bit of semantics to it, but arguably it's ego when Michael Jordan was known to have a massive ego, but he was Michael friggin' Jordan. Muhammad Ali used to say, I'm the greatest. I knew that before the world said I was.
Define ego.
Let's see.
Ego means a person's sense of self-esteem or self-importance.
So there you go. So I think ego, ego
I might change my belief. You changed my belief, maybe.
That's profound. Always a beautiful thing when I can do that.
Well, I always tell people, man, you got to be open to change what you think and what you believe. Because let me tell you something, folks. There's a fact. If you're tired of getting what you're getting, you got to change what you're doing. And if you want to change what you're doing, you got to change what you believe. Because the reason you do what you do is because you believe what you believe.
Absolutely, my friend.
And so you want to change what you're getting, change what you're doing. If you want to change what you're doing, you got to change what you believe. And if you want to change what you believe, you have to seek out new information and be open to it. Mm-hmm. So again, like I always said, ego is not your amigo. Why? Because it's fucking funny. It rhymes. And I never looked up the definition, but my thought of an ego was like false bravado, meaning the ego is built to protect your yourself. You know, so like if I didn't think you liked me, my ego would say, well, fuck him. He's a fucking asshole anyway. That's an ego. Yeah. Confidence would have been, you know, for me to come up and, you know, shake your hand, give you a hug, even though you didn't like me. So I got to go do some definition, but I still like the rhyme, ego ain't your amigo.
It is a good rhyme for sure.
It's boiling down to what you're saying is basically use these things.
Yeah.
Because you can't lose them, so you got to use them.
There is, because you can't lose ego. We're all gonna have it. I mean, that's the nature of the self. But but ego can coexist with humility. Ego is not the enemy of humility. Ego can coexist with humility. So athletes, again, are a great example. You know, they have the ego. The best athletes in the world, like Tom Brady, when he got selected for the Patriots, he was like, I'm the best decision this organization's ever made. That's massive ego because he knew he was the best.
But is that what he said?
He did, yeah. He said pretty much word for word that, but I'm the best decision this organization's ever made. But he also, the greatest athletes have humility to know they are learners. They know they have always room for improvement. So ego is not the opposite of humility. Ego can coexist with humility. And same thing, I mean, that's the ethos of Fearvana. Fear and nirvana are often framed as these two opposite forces, right? Fear is this primal emotion, this so-called quote-unquote negative emotion. Nirvana is bliss, enlightenment, the attainment of the human awakening, right? But they're not opposites. They can coexist, and in fact, I believe they must coexist, and you can only attain that bliss by engaging fear. You cannot evolve. You cannot reach a higher self without going through the struggle, without embracing the suck first. And the fear is going to suck. Stress is going to suck. But that's the transformation happens in that suck. You got to be with it and seek out that pain. Adversity is not only inevitable in life, adversity is desirable. And so you got to seek out suffering, because through suffering, you will find your salvation.
That's a fact.
Absolutely.
I would say the biggest growth is in discomfort.
Absolutely.
Like every time you're uncomfortable, man, that's when you're growing. That's when you're freaking learning. That's when you're developing, you know, literally. And then, you know, let's say you're laying in bed in the morning, it's nice and warm, it's cold outside, you don't want to get out of bed because you're comfortable. But what if you were laying in bed and it was cold and it was wet? You get out of the bed, you move. So usually discomfort causes movement and causes, you know, action. Yeah. And that's usually where the growth is.
Absolutely. The growth, the evolution. So seek out, I mean, I like to seek out discomfort and pain in all kinds of forms. Today I run ultra marathons. Writing my book was horribly uncomfortable. Building a business was hard. I just recently spent 7 days in pitch darkness, isolation, and silence to confront my fear of stillness. That was horribly uncomfortable, but transformational.
7 days?
7 days in pitch darkness. Can't see your hand in front of you, darkness.
For 7 days?
24/7 for 7 days.
When you came out of that, was the light sensitive to your eyes?
It was one of the most profound experiences of my life to come out of that darkness.
Where did you do that at?
It was in Germany.
Were you spelunking?
I was not spelunking. I was in an isolated room, just sitting there by myself, in silence and isolation.
Think about this. I think fear is not, like I said at one time, we fear the unknown because we were created by it.
I like that.
Yeah, because
that's cool.
How are we created? Everyone says, well, God. Well, first of all, no one's ever met him. No one's ever talked to him. Oh, I have. No, I don't know. Whatever. That's spiritual. All I'm talking about is we were created by the unknown. And maybe that's why we fear it. People are like, what do you mean we fear the unknown? I don't fear the unknown. Watch. When you look into a dark room and you don't want to go in there, why? You're afraid of what might be in there. It's unknown what's in there. If you turned the light on and saw that there was nothing in there, there is no longer an unknown. Yeah. You know there's no one in the room. So now you go in there and turn off the light and it's not scary. Why? Well, because you know nobody's in the room. But if you go into a room that's dark and you don't know who's in there, that's where the fear is. The other day, my buddy put these virtual goggles on, these Oculus virtual reality goggles. Yeah. And there's a freaking program where you press the button and it looks like you're going up in this elevator. Now these are virtual reality, so it's pretty real. Yeah. And you're going up in an elevator to the top of the skyscraper, and then the elevator opens and there's a plank. And you have to walk the plank. And dude, I know that I'm in his living room. Yeah. I did not want to walk that plank. Dude, that's fear. And it's crazy because your mind knows you're in the living room. Yeah. But I did not want to walk that damn plank. Is that crazy?
Believe it. No, not at all. Because your mind creates what's real. I mean, it's absolutely like your mind can manufacture all kinds of fears, and I mean to perceived risks, right? Not just real risks. So it's not crazy at all. It's totally normal and human to feel that.
Not only that, but you also can make mistakes. So like, let's say you're standing there with your family. Someone comes running at you with a knife in their hand. They got blood on their shirt and they're running at you. What do, man? If no one says a word, you might punch that individual or grab your family and start to hide them because you're afraid. But when they run up and you realize, they need your help or something happened and they're not there to stab you, and now you realize that, your first instinct was to fight or protect because you were afraid this person's coming to hurt you. Well, it's, even though he wasn't, you thought that it was that. Yeah. So again, that fear can screw up your judgment, can hinder your awareness. It can cause you to create a lot of mistakes in your life. It can cause you to not take action or see something that's obvious. It's just a negative thing, unless you realize what you're saying, which is, dude, it's only negative if you make it that way. If you use it to where, hey man, I was scared shitless, so I did this. Use the fear to do this.
And train yourself in that fear. The more you train in the emotion, the more you condition yourself in the experience of that misery, however it shows up, the discomfort, the more you'll be familiar with it and be able to master it the next time it shows up for you.
Yeah, like for example, fighting. Like I don't really like fighting. If someone fights me, I guess I'll fight, but I don't like it. Like I know people that like it. Like they literally, get in the truck and go out to a bar and their intention is to get in a fight. They want to fight somebody. Crazy. But to me, I get fearful. If someone starts to want to fight, I'm like, son of a bitch. I get those butterflies and then it's like, oh, we got a problem here. Well, if I were to go down and train and fight repeatedly for a year straight, I literally would not care anymore about fighting.
Because you know how to handle that situation.
Yeah, you make it familiar.
Yeah.
So you see what I'm saying? That is also proving what I just said. I fear the unknown because I don't get in fights all the time. Yeah. So I fear what might happen. I fear the unknown. Yeah. If I knew, I can get in a fight with this guy, I'm not going to have a broken nose, I'm not going to have any broken teeth, it's not going to hurt that bad, then I might, and then everyone's going to think I'm cool because I'm willing to fight. Yeah. So now I do it all day long and not be afraid of it because now I know. Fear and the unknown. We fear the unknown.
Absolutely. And it's natural. It's natural to be scared of the unknown because it's unknown is a risk. You don't know what's out there.
Not only that, I think it's because we were created by it.
Yeah, no, I like that you said that, yeah.
We were created by the unknown.
Yeah.
And that's why we fear it.
Yeah.
And aren't we supposed to?
Of course. I mean, that's fearing the unknown is what's kept us alive as a species, We fear these things we don't know, that like there could be giant lions or saber-toothed tigers in the grass, right? And that's like a reasonable thing to be scared of. If you're not scared of that thing, it could kill you. That's why psychologically they actually call it a negativity bias. We're more prone to focus on dangers and threats than we are to focus on the beautiful things and the positive things, because the dangers and threats are the ones that can kill us. As an example, like let's look at archaic man living in, the caves or whatever. If they miss a beautiful sunset, no big deal. They'll be alive the next day. But if they miss the threat around the corner, the predator, they are dead and they will no longer be alive. Life is over. So our brain is conditioned to focus on the threats, except in today's day and age, for most of us who are living, outside of war zones and stuff like that, we don't have life-threatening threats on a regular occurrence. So our brain just manufactures these perceived threats, and we're more conditioned to avoid them. Research has also shown that we'll do more to avoid losing $50 than to gain $50.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
And, it's funny that you say that because you get more of what you focus on. So if you're focusing on danger and threats, evidently you'll get more of them.
Which is why part of the way to engage fear is, one, not demonize it, accept that its presence is there and it's not negative. The second part is exactly kind of what you're saying, is what's the value on the other side of that fear? Be clear on the result. What do I want? Like you talked about fearing consequences instead of just fearing that, okay, if I do this thing, this could go horribly wrong. I fear failure. But what's the fear if I don't do this thing? What's the fear? One of the ways
that's what I do.
Yeah. And that's really powerful. I love it. I mean, one of the ways I finally finished my book was because I procrastinated for a little bit. I'm not going to lie. And one of the ways I finally finished it was, the fear that if I were to die tomorrow, never having shared my message with the world. I mean, today, actually, in my living room, I have a sign. It's a picture of a graveyard from where my friend was buried in the war. And under it says, "You will die soon." I have that up in my living room. So every day I'm constantly reminded of death. And I use that as fuel. So I think staying present to death is the ultimate fear, and fear of death is not a bad thing. So
are you afraid of death?
I am afraid of death.
Why?
Because I believe there's so much more life to be lived, and I don't want to die just yet.
Yeah, but what if dying is life beginning?
I mean, I don't personally believe in an afterlife, if that's where you're going with that.
I don't know.
I don't know either, but I don't believe in one. So
you think this is it?
I believe this is it.
When you're done, you're done. Lights out, no memory, no nothing?
Absolutely. I mean, that's what I believe in. Maybe I could be wrong. I mean, I could go to...
I think
nobody can guarantee there is an afterlife. Nobody can guarantee it. So I could be wrong. The people who believe it could be wrong. Who knows? Yeah. So since we don't know, I would rather embrace this one life that I have. And if I got another one, great. I'll soak it all up in that next one. Until then, I'm going to use this. And I don't mean like live every day like it's your last. That's kind of garbage, because if I
wish we could do that.
But see, I think here's the thing: if we lived every day like it's our last, would we really put in the work to be successful? I mean, you've built businesses, it's a grind. There's some days where it's just absolutely sucks. So if I knew for a fact tomorrow was the last day of my life, would I really do some of the things? No, I'd be hanging out, chilling, living it up, So I don't mean like live every day like it's your last. I mean just really staying present that death is coming. We will die soon. Staying present to our mortality. And I've come close to death many a times. I've been almost killed by falling boulders in the Himalayas.
You've been spelunking.
And caving and skiing across a polar ice cap where a British explorer was killed the following year. So I've not only felt my own mortality, I've experienced death with multiple people close to me. So, I've lost veterans to suicide in war, in addiction, buddies of mine. So I'm familiar with death, and I think there's value in staying present to our own mortality, because that actually helps us embrace the experience of this life and use it, knowing that whether we have an afterlife or not, that I better do something useful with this life I have. And whatever that means, ever useful could be different context to different people. But don't waste this by fearing the unknown, which you will fear anyway, but fear the consequences of not taking that action. Yeah,
I like it. And if they pick up this book, Fearvana, that's pretty much what it teaches them in depth.
It goes deep into understanding the neuroscience, the psychology of fear, of how we work. How do you then take action on it? What do you do with it? How do you turn fear into this experience of Fearvana and ultimately keep seeking out the next awakening? Awakening is that next level of consciousness when you evolve into that higher self. Because it's a cyclical process, right? There's this awareness, action, and awakening. You gain a new awakening, you gain new awareness, you take new action. I kind of call it the action awareness cycle. You're constantly in this cyclical process to attain new awakenings, to attain new evolution. And in order to do that, you have to seek out that fear, seek out that suffering in whatever way it shows up for you. I love ultra running. I run long distance runs. I go into darkness retreats. I ski across polar ice caps. You don't have to do what I do, but find your own struggle. Find a way that will engage you. And be clear, what's the result on the other side of that fear? Visualize yourself. Visualization is a great and powerful tool. And not just, that sort of law of attraction idea of visualizing yourself all happy on the other side of it. There's value to that, don't get me wrong. But visualize yourself in the suck. Before a long run, I know every time I do a long run, I'm going to experience horrible pain. And I visualize myself being in that pain, transcending that pain, rising above it to keep moving forward. And so engage that and be clear, what's the result I'm seeking? When you do that, you isolate yourself from the fear, understand the fear, not demonize it, but why am I afraid? What's the fear? How do I prepare for it? How do I train for it? Because the more you prepare, the less, like you said, with the fighting, the less you'll be, the less the fear will be there. And it won't always go away, but you'll learn to use it and then channel that fear into purposeful fuel, into the action that you want to take to evolve into your next self.
What about like procrastination?
Procrastination is ultimately rooted in an experience of fear, right? And it's also like there's all kinds of stuff. You'll find millions of articles, of course, on procrastination, but at its very core, why we do anything is the need to avoid pain or the desire to gain pleasure. So why do we procrastinate? At its very core, there is a perceived pain to the action, so we don't want to do it, so we will take the pleasure of, watching Netflix, drinking alcohol, whatever it may be, the thing we will do that's easier from the pain of doing the work. Which is why, fundamentally, the essence of Fearvana and the single most important skill to master in life, to live a happier, more meaningful, and more successful life, whatever those words mean to you, the single most important skill is to develop a positive relationship to suffering. if you can, as I like to say, suffer well, then not only can you live a happier life when life punches you in the face, because you'll be able to find beauty in pain, but you'll also be able to do the thing that is hard to attain the next version of yourself, to attain your success. Because anything worthwhile doing is hard. It's gonna be hard. But if you can suffer well and smile in the face of that pain, you'll be able to take that action. Running ultramarathons is hard. Building businesses is hard. Writing books is hard. A relationship is hard. Raising kids. I don't have kids yet, but I was a nightmare of a child, so I can imagine it was hard. But anything worthwhile doing is hard. So if you can embrace the suck of that, you'll be able to find bliss in everything.
Obviously, everybody's a work in progress, but do you feel, based on where you were and how far you've come, that you've got it down now? Or, like, I feel like I procrastinate a little more still.
It's human. I still do it. I still do it, but I'm much
But I want
better.
to eliminate procrastination, because I can promise you, procrastination kills more dreams and goals
100%.
than anybody.
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to fitness.
Yeah.
Man, I'm gonna get up and start working out tomorrow morning. I'm gonna get buff, man, for the next 90 days. I'm not gonna eat shit. I'm gonna freaking just get buff.
Yeah.
Then the very next day, man, you wake up. It's like, dude, there's nothing changed. You were just excited at night, and all of a sudden it's like, damn, dude. And that's exactly what's happened. You're perceiving the pain and agony of feeling those weights. But here's what I do. I reverse it, and I say, I feel pain in not being buff.
Exactly.
So I go to the gym, and it wavers back and forth. Obviously, I'm no muscle man, but I get by maybe 3, 4, 5 days a week at the gym. And I trick myself by saying, man, I fear looking like I'm going to look if I don't at least go down there for a half hour or so.
Yeah. So part of it is embracing the suck and reframing fear like how you do. The other part is also setting up systems. Because look, willpower will only get us so far. Willpower will drain. We can grind ourselves into the fight through will, through the grit, through courage, but that will fade. So what you do is you set up systems so you don't have to think about things. So I have systems for everything. So for example, my morning breakfast is the exact same thing every day. So is my dinner.
What is it?
It's a smoothie. It's like 1,000-calorie smoothie. It's a
Every
beast of
day,
a
every
smoothie.
morning.
Every morning.
I kind of like that,
traveling,
though.
Barring traveling, obviously a little bit changes, but when I'm at home, every single day. Why? Because I don't want to have to exercise cognitive energy. I don't want to have to think. I save my physical and my cognitive energy for the tasks at hand, which for me are my ultra running, my training, and my business. So I save cognitive energy and physical energy for both those, and every area of my life that is not systematized, I create systems. So I have a system for my morning ritual, for my night ritual, for my diet, for how I work every day. Like as an example, at the end of every night, I track down what did I achieve today. I write down what are my top 3 to 5 tasks today, and those are in line with my weekly goals, which are in line with my 90-day goals. For every 90 days, I set goals, and beyond that, I set a vision. There's a difference, right? So 90 days goals, the research has shown, is the best way to set goals, and then I have those goals, and everything is then broken down into monthly targets, weekly targets, daily targets, 3 to 5 tasks for the next day, and the next day is completely structured to the T on how I get those things done. I work in 50-minute chunks with 10-minute breaks, 50-minute chunks, 10-minute breaks. Everything is structured. I even have a system for how I shower. Now, I'm very neurotic and addictive. Clearly, you don't have to go that far, but I even have a system for how I shower. So everything is systematized. I don't have to think.
What's the shower system?
And the shower system is I have 5 different showers. I have a cold shower, 2 different contrast showers. One is a 3-to-1 ratio, and one is a 1-to-1 ratio. One is just a hot shower that I call a white space shower. So I take a warm shower to be able to just ponder life. And usually what I do in a white space shower is I set something to ponder, something to think about. And then the shower becomes the space to think about that thing. And the other shower is a fun, music, relaxing shower. So let's say after a really long run or something, I might have that. So I have a system. So what I do is I choose one of these showers, and then I just follow the checklist. So everything is turned into a checklist. My diet is a checklist. My morning routine is a checklist. My night routine is a checklist. Everything is a checklist. That way I don't have to think. I just follow the list.
Those are give that the old bomb. Better pay attention, folks. That sounds like a process that would garner some results.
Absolutely.
Is that in the book or no?
That I do touch on that, and we expand on that with some follow-up trainings that you can get from the book, but that's more about engaging, because here's the thing. You can set up systems, but there is going to come a day. This is where people, I feel like, get habits wrong. You'll see a lot of quote-unquote experts talk about how when you set up habits, it's all easy, or they frame it as if it's easy. To me, anybody who's framing anything as easy, run from that nonsense because nothing worthwhile is easy. You can set up habits and systematize stuff, but there will come a day. So I might have systems for how I exercise, right? Like I do. I'm very consistent with my running and my exercise, extremely consistent. But there are days I do not feel like doing it. And in those days, that is what matters. It's easy to do it when you're feeling great. It's easy to go through life and, to take the action when you're feeling great, when you're on top of the world. But when those days you don't, what you do in those moments will define you. That's why I say the fundamental skill is learning how to suffer well. Now, with that said, you balance suffering with systems, you become unstoppable. You challenge will with that surrender to the systems. So I'm always looking for that dance. So I do talk about systems and developing those systems so you can save your cognitive and physical energy. But really, you got to master that first. Because even in creating a system, you have to exercise cognitive energy. You have to exercise physical energy. Anytime you're doing something you've never done before, it's going to be a little hard at first. And you're going to have to step into the hardness of that, to the challenge of that, even to set up a system. Once it becomes a little bit normal, it'll become a ritual. It'll become easy. Then it becomes more conditioned. But you first are going to have to engage the struggle to develop the system.
Do you ever coach people to help them with their systems?
I do. I used to do a lot more one-on-one coaching. Today, I don't do as much. I'm willing to if it's really the right fit. But I do to help them develop that systems to master their relationship to pain and suffering, and as well as the challenges of life. Because like I said, over a lot of struggle coming out from deep alcoholism, depression, PTSD, going through a challenging divorce, everything, all you name it, all the struggles of that. I've managed to figure out a lot on what it takes to not only live a happier life, but a successful one by any measure of success. And to be clear, also, that doesn't mean I don't go through lows. I go through lows often. Very low, and I've learned to train myself in lows. So talking like what I do, for example, is sometimes I consciously watch scenes from war movies, knowing they will make me cry, like Black Hawk Down or Hacksaw Ridge or Band of Brothers. I'll watch those scenes knowing they will make me cry, and they do, and they tear me up. But why I do that is I'm training myself to be in an emotion, and I find there's value in experiencing the intensity, the range of the human experience, not just the happiness and joy. I like going deep into darkness, obviously literally, as well as figuratively, because if you go into darkness, you understand the light in a different way. So I've mastered even the lows. When I'm in low, I'm comfortable in the low, and it hurts and it sucks, but I find peace even in the darkness, even engaging my demons.
So how do you eat in the dark?
What in the darkness retreat, what happened with the place, I was doing smoothies. I was doing 3 smoothies a day. So the people who organize the darkness retreat, they bring a smoothie, they put it out in the hallway, they ring a little bell and to let you know it's there. And then even the hallway is pitch dark though. And then you can come out and grab the smoothie. But the reason why staying in extended periods of darkness for that long is so valuable, I mean, for one, when you're shut off your visual sense, you have nowhere to go, right? Like you can't look at things and attach your consciousness. I can't be like, this is a water bottle, and you have sort of conscious conversation with that. There's nothing to attach your consciousness to, so I like to say that your soul becomes a mirror to itself. 1, you're going within, and 2, neurologically, unique things happen to your brain. So your brain actually naturally starts to release DMT, which is one of the primary ingredients in ayahuasca and many psychedelics. So you go on these insane trips that are as wild and real as anything else. Just as a quick example, it was, I think, day 6 of the darkness. It got so bright, I felt like I needed an eye mask to sleep. I was literally covering my eyes like this and trying to touch my eyelids to see if they were open, and it was blindingly bright, and I'm in a pitch dark room.
All imagination?
I mean, it felt as real as you and me sitting here, as me looking at you. It was as real as that, but how that, I mean, it's because, again, your brain is releasing these DMT, these chemicals that are putting you in these trippy kind of experiences. I mean, another time felt like I was paralyzed with my arm locked out like this, looking at green and red lights in the ceiling. And I was going on this insane trip for what must have been hours, looking at these lights, dancing like the universe, and just in this pure paralytic state. Like I could not move my arms. At one point, it felt like the bed was moving, and I was journeying somewhere. And I mean, if you had told someone like me this a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, I'm very like pragmatic, science-based. I would have a hard time believing it, but I know what I experienced, and it was as real as anything else you can imagine.
If someone wants to do this, where do they go?
The place I went, which I highly recommend, beautiful place, it's darknessretreat.net. And they're in Germany. This was the place that I went. So you can kind of customize your experience with the darkness. Like I said, you can choose water, smoothies, or food. So I chose smoothies. Some people do it where they'll have a counselor come in 1 hour a day, and you can talk through the stuff that's coming up. I chose not to do that. I wanted to be in complete isolation. You can even do it with the group, and they would take you out for about 1 hour a day or maybe more, and you'll still wear eye masks. You'll still be in the dark, but you'll do group meditations or group therapy kind of thing. You can do that option. The universal element is the dark, and you can sort of customize your experience of it.
What What do they say that it's going to do for you?
See, unlike like if you go to any sort of seminar in the personal development world, like no matter who it is, right, the Tony Robbins, Jack Canfield, whoever it may be, right, wrong, good, bad about their training is irrelevant. The point is you're being guided by a particular methodology. In the darkness, you're not being guided by any methodology. The darkness is his own teacher. So the lady who started it, she's done she spent 10 years on these, going to ashrams, silent retreats, doing yoga trainings, like this, that, and the other thing. She has done a lot in terms of spiritual evolution. And she said nothing has accelerated her spiritual awakenings like being in the darkness. She was telling me this story about this woman who went in there, and this horrible childhood sexual trauma she had gone through sort of started coming to the surface in the darkness. And by coming to the surface, she was able to process it. And I think actually a really good quote that summarizes this from Carl Jung. He says, "There is no coming to consciousness without pain. People will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid confronting their own souls. One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." And that last part I love, that one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. Because we all have those demons within us. Well, a lot of us do. We're going to have those demons. And the thing is, those demons are going to hold us back. And you know how they say that a chain is only as strong as its weakest link? It's the same way within us. We are only as strong as that dark forces. And most of us avoid confronting it because it's hard. It's painful. But if you bring that darkness to the surface, you can do something with it. Carl Jung also says that until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate.
How do we control or find our dark side?
Stillness. Engage in stillness. We're living a world. Stillness and suffering, I think, are the two most profound ways to do it. And the third way I would say is surrounding yourself with people who are more evolved than you. And evolved is, and it's not a negative thing to say someone's more evolved in whatever way. So let's say I want to grow in business, surround myself with people who are more advanced in business. If I want to grow spiritually or in fitness, put yourself where you're the weakest person in the room, the stupidest person in the room. Put yourself in those places you learn. The other way is stillness, just being still. In today's day and age, we are so distracted from ourselves. We're constantly on our phones, doing something to avoid ourselves. And sometimes even the positive things, and I noticed this within myself a long time ago, even the positive things I was doing, like building a business or running or skiing across ice caps, like things the world would praise me for, really what I was doing was running away from myself. I still do these things, but today I'm doing it from a very different level of consciousness. So be still. And the other one is put yourself in spaces of suffering. Put yourself in moments where one part of you is going to want to fight and the other is going to want to quit. When you put yourself in those spaces, you will find a new version of you that you didn't know was there until you've gone into that depths of pain. Because pain is such a beautiful teacher. There is a purity to pain. I always like to say the suffering is a training ground for self-transcendence.
You know the best teacher ever?
Adverse?
Death.
Death. I love that.
Problem is we can't afford the lessons.
I love that.
So how do you find your dark side, though? Because when you say stillness, like you mean just sit in bed and all of a sudden your dark side comes out?
If you spend enough time doing that, it will.
Because again, number one, that whole dark, that sounds cool to me. Like if something happens, but I'm like wondering, I'm going to go check out their website. Like what happens? I always say I'm pretty satisfied with things, but I'm not content. You know what I mean? In other words, I want more, and I think I'm always going to want more. But I'm also satisfied. In other words, if someone told me, Brad, you're not getting any more than you have, I'm cool with that too. Like I don't really need more, but I want more, and I think I always will. But I look for the result. So I'd go spend a month in the darkness if someone said, when you come out, you'll be this. And that's what I want. So I'm trying to figure out what is it that it does for you? What is their claim? You spend 7 days in the dark and you will come out what?
That's
other than squinting.
Yeah, other than that, exactly. I think that's actually part of the beauty in it, is that you can't say everybody's going to have their own individual experience. And like you, I'm very okay, I want what's the clarity of the outcome, right? Like what is the thing I'm going to get? But that's part of the reason why I went into the dark, was I actually just surrendered. I didn't go in there with an intention. I just surrendered to say whatever the darkness is going to show me, it will show me. And it showed me what I needed to learn.
What do you think it showed you?
For me, it showed me a lot about, I had navigated my demons of survivor's guilt, a friend. So when I was in the dark stuff actually did not come up. I didn't, the trauma stuff I had worked through. What came up for me was the allowing myself to feel happy, was self-love, self-worth. Because for a long time in my life, and it's still a muscle I'm building,
But how's that dark?
it wasn't. That's what I'm saying. For me, paradoxically, light stuff came up in the dark. And for some stuff, like this other woman I told you, it was all her trauma. So it's going to show up what it shows up. But for me, I needed that message. I needed to feel it because I've struggled with happiness for a long time in my life. I've always felt there's so much pain, and I've seen so much of it in war zones, in post-conflict zones, in leper colonies, poverty, that there's so much pain in the world. Why do I get to be happy? So I've struggled with my own self-worth that, I didn't suffer in the war. I didn't lose a limb. I didn't get shot. I was no hero. Why do I get to be here? All that stuff we talked about. So I'd struggled with being happy and in the darkness, and I actually was journaling in the dark. So the stuff that came through was profound. And I actually wrote that, like, I found the permission to be happy, permission to own my, that I'm grateful to be alive, that I'm worth being here, that I can love this self that I have, that I had struggled with because what was getting me through life until that moment was just pure grit. And if I had to say that my greatest strength is grit, like I'll suffer to no end to get to a result. And that's a great skill, but I think that when you balance the control, which is what you were talking about, right? Like you want the outcome. And control, I think, is a beautiful thing. And same thing we were talking about with the discontentment. Like you're content, but you're also discontent. And I think, like everything, contentment and discontentment can coexist. Ego and humility can coexist. Fear and nirvana can coexist. Darkness and light can coexist, as I saw profoundly in the dark. And the same thing with what all this stuff I was going through, right? Like that these seemingly paradoxical forces can coexist. And I found the permission to be happy. And that's what I translate to what you were saying, is that control and surrender can coexist. So I think control is powerful. Like I will seize control of my fate. Here's the outcome. But I will also surrender. And both those, and I've been a big control guy. My surrender muscle, if you will, was weak. But they can coexist, and the darkness taught me, which is still something I'm developing because I only did the darkness retreat a few months ago. So I'm still working on that muscle, but it taught me the value of surrender.
Out of all the things you've ran around the world doing, what was your favorite so far?
Great question. It's hard to say my favorite. I've been blessed with tremendously beautiful experiences in many capacities. I would say, the one that kind of just recently stands out was a few months ago. Was it? Yeah, about almost a little less than a year ago. I ran 167 miles across Liberia. It was about a marathon a day for a week to help build the first sustainable school out there. We did humanitarian work out there, and Liberia, the country as a whole, has gone through severe civil war, poverty, Ebola virus. So it's a nation that suffered a lot. And so it was a very powerful experience to be there, to run across this country, to work with to people there. I worked with former child soldiers. One of the organizations my foundation supports is former child soldiers out there. So just doing the humanitarian work, experiencing the intensity of the human experience in that capacity was very profound. And we actually, one of the coolest things that happened too from it was I got so close to my cameraman who was filming the run. He would start running with me for a little while. So we started chatting, we would talk, and I found out his 5-year-old son had this severe heart condition that could have killed him any moment. So through my foundation, we brought him, his wife, and his 5-year-old son to India. They stayed with me and my family for 1 month, and his 5-year-old son had a life-saving heart surgery. And now he's back in Liberia playing soccer, he's active, and his life is saved just because I was running across the country, and we connected in a way that it could not have connected having gone into those intense spaces of running across the country. And so just to me, it was such a profound experience of human beings coming together from all kinds of different walks of life. And I mean, that kid's life is forever changed. And I feel humbled and grateful to have been a part of that.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So very cool.
Rich or happy?
I don't think they have to be mutually exclusive. I mean, if I had to choose, I guess happy, but I think they can be both, right?
There's the ticket right there. Just got done saying it the other day. A couple of these gurus out there talking about, man, don't be unhappy just for the money. Choose to be happy. Just go focus on happy. And I'm like, dude, focus on both.
Exactly.
Like you can be happy and rich.
Oh, yeah.
Why would you tell someone to just focus on happy?
I agree.
Well, because it's better to be happy than miserable and rich. Right, but why does it have to be miserable and rich as the alternative to happy and rich?
Yeah.
Like, why is happy not, how come that doesn't mean rich? Like, to me, I don't think I can be happy without having means and choices.
Yeah.
And money really just gives you means and choices. So, like, could I be happy watching TV for the day with no money? Of course I can. But, like, as a whole life, I don't think I can be happy with no money. I wouldn't be happy. I wouldn't be happy I can't take my kids to Disneyland. I wouldn't be happy I can go get the latest, coolest toys. That's all material. Dude, like quit bullshitting people. Like, dude, like quit bullshitting people. You want me to get in a robe and waltz around the desert just being happy? I don't think it's real. Now, I could be wrong.
I think it's
Look at some of the monks up in the Himalayas.
Yeah, I think it's possible for some, but I certainly agree with you that that money is not the enemy of happiness. I want money. I
want people to focus on both. I'm not saying money's more important than happiness. I'm saying both is possible.
Completely agree.
And you should focus on both. Do not listen to a guru that tells you to focus on being happy and forget money, or focus on being happy and the money will come. Good, maybe. But how about focus on both? Because I know a lot of people that are unhappy, and when I ask them, why are you so unhappy? You know what they bring up? Money issues. Dude, why are you unhappy? My wife left me. Why'd your wife leave you? Because we fought about money. I couldn't afford to do this. I couldn't afford to do that. And then you know what people say to them? Dude, if she's going to leave you over money, then fuck her. No. How about make some more money, and then you wouldn't be unhappy? Your wife wouldn't have left.
I feel you. I think, yeah, making money and happiness are definitely not mutually exclusive, and I love what you're saying about focusing on both. I completely agree.
Well, most people don't say both like you did. Most people will say one or the other. A lot of people say rich. I'll take rich because I can't be happy poor. But some people say happy because they hear from, gurus that are just like cliche.
Yeah.
Be happy, man. Just focus on the happiness, brother. Yeah. No, focus on both. You can be happy and rich, and you shouldn't be happy unless you have some financial wherewithal to help serve and access things. Dude, I believe that as human beings, we thrive when we develop and grow, right?
Yeah.
And when we reach our potential. And in order to reach our potential, we need to access things. You want to get in shape? Access the gym. We want to learn? Access the library. Culture. Different cultures, traveling. You go send someone around the world 10 times, they come back. People say travel is the cure for racism. So it's like, you have to have money to do these things. Why can't people just stop believing the hype about you don't need money, don't focus on money, money's not everything, money shouldn't be what you're going for, and start saying money should definitely be what you're going for. Not so much that it makes you unhappy. Which I would agree. Like, if going for money literally destroys your life, well then no, I would agree. Go with the happy. Yeah. But at the end of the day, it's both, man. You find it very, very difficult to be happy with no money.
I love that you said that, and I agree. Yeah, you're right. Most people don't say that, right? So I fully on board.
Well, that's why they call me the real Brad Lee, dog.
Love it.
Because I just tell the truth, and it's my truth. It doesn't necessarily mean I'm always right. Yeah. I could be wrong. One of these days, old Gary Vee is going to be on this podcast, and we're going to have a long discussion about things, because he's got some good things to say, and then some things he says, I'm like, what? Yeah. Like, what? Why are you telling people that? And then I have people comment and say, well, there's a lot of people out there that are never going to be millionaires. So he gives them hope that, being a regular person is good enough. And I'm like, that's why I'm speaking out, because, dude, no, it isn't. Why would you give someone that comfort when in reality you should give them the discomfort so they can grow out of it? My kids, I don't give them everything they want. I help them here and there so they're not like real struggling. But most people will eliminate all problems and challenges for their kids when in reality problems and challenges are what toughen them up and prepare them for life. So why are we making our children weak by eliminating all their problems? Yeah. And we all do it. And if we think about it, we're probably the only species on Earth that does that.
Yeah. Absolutely.
There's birds that'll chuck that baby out of that nest, and if it splats, hey, the next one better flap them wings. Yeah. So as humans, we want to make everything easy. We want to make sure they're safe. We want to make sure they don't hurt themselves. And we're weakening them.
I agree. It's one of the biggest mistakes I see parents make whenever I do talks on all of especially like I firmly believe these affluent up and coming generation is going to be the one that suffers more than any other because parents are making them weak. And I have so many people I know do this. Spoil their kids and you think you're helping them. You're not. You're only hurting them. And I see the effects of it. I see kids coming up, many of my little cousins who have zero resilience. So they freak out at anything in life. Freak out. So I'm completely on board. They need to learn to suffer a little bit, you know.
Yeah.
I'm not saying you send them in the middle of a war zone, obviously, you know, but put them in let them struggle a little bit, and you learn through that. That's how you grow in confidence.
That's how you grow.
You fall, and then you learn to get back up. Confidence is the result of surviving a risk. You get stronger through the fall.
That's how you grow. I talk to a lot of people, thankfully, because I have this podcast, so I get a lot of different characters come through here. And what's crazy is a lot of them have crazy stories, a lot of bad stories. Ooh, I did this, and this was what happened, and I came back from hell, and blah, blah, blah. Every one of them said, I would not change anything because that made this possible. And I say to everybody, each and every time, everyone who's going through shit right now, if you're listening to this podcast and you think in your life there is shit, you're being disrespected, you're not making enough money, your girl's cheating on you, your guy's cheating on you, all this drama and bullshit, and we're like, please, why me? Folks, believe it or not, and this is what you're basically saying, your whole book, how you use those experiences will determine whether or not you're thankful later or regretful. But I've never met anybody yet that came out of the other side wishing it never happened. Yep. Now, again, I'm not talking about some guy lost his leg in the war. Yeah, he wishes that would never happen. But thankfully it did because of this. And I'm always like, every single time somebody's thankful. Now, is that their mind playing tricks on them? Or is it like a necessary thing? So I tell people, and I'm telling the bomb squad right now, as you're driving around, listening to this, walking on the treadmill, pay attention. If you got shit going on in your life, man, be thankful, be grateful. You know why? Because I think that's the way the universe weeds out the undeserving. I think if you're deserving, the universe is going to throw you some shit, and how you react is how they weed out the ones that don't deserve shit. Isn't that crazy? Because there's people complaining about the problems in their life when in reality those are almost blessings, aren't they?
They are.
If that's what's going to come out the other side, where you actually want.
Yeah. No, I mean, I completely agree. Like, I mean, I know there's certain things that, you might say, obviously I wouldn't wish this on somebody, but now having gone through it, like one of the groups I work with is these young girls who are victims of sex trafficking. What these girls have gone through is horrific, just absolute. They've experienced the intensity of human evil. Obviously, nobody would wish that upon another human being, but having gone through it, they can come out much stronger than that other person who doesn't know anything, who has never experienced struggle, who's only lived in comfort. I lived a great life as a kid. My parents gave me everything. I sought out suffering and pain by joining the Marines, and I cannot tell you how grateful I am for that. It has led me into a world of suffering and pain that I could not be more grateful for, and today I seek it out. So people in those horrific situations, yes, nobody would wish that on somebody in like war zones and poverty and like these sex trafficking. That's awful, awful things. But having gone through that hell, those girls are warriors today. Today. You cannot get stronger without going into the suck, without being in the hell, in that fear. Like, that's how we're forged. We're forged in the fires of life, you know? And like you said, the universe weeds it out. So when you're going through it, just ask yourself, what can I be grateful for about this pain? I love how you said find gratitude. Just asking yourself for that. Like, that question can lead you to find answers. Like, when I went through a divorce, it was extremely challenging. I broke my sobriety, would not have wanted it. But I remember later on saying, I'm so grateful I went through this because it taught me a new kind of suffering, as a result, a new kind of pain, as a result, a new kind of awakening. And ironically, as it happens, I had 3 people, because I get emails from people who've read my book and whatnot fairly often, and 3 people, like that time, right then, and when it happened, wrote me saying they're going through a really challenging divorce, and they were sort of asking for some counsel. Now, I get to help those people in a different way than I would have had I not gone through it. Again, I wouldn't have wished it when it happened, but now that it went through, I was blessed with the new kind of suffering. Whenever suffering hits, I always say I was blessed with this suffering. Like you'll hear me say when we talk about all the shit I've been through in life, I'm saying I'm blessed with a great deal of suffering. I'm grateful for it. I would not be the person that's sitting in front of you today had it not been for all the things I went through. It's made me a different being.
Every one of them, including this guy. You just said the same thing. See what I'm talking about, folks? Don't worry about the shit that's going on in your life. Enjoy it. Believe it or not, you're going through something. It's forging you. It's preparing you, and it's strengthening you. So actually, even though you're sitting there wondering why me, well, because you're being chosen. And the question is how are you going to react? So I always say, cowboy up, son, cowboy up. Now, all the listeners, go out and get Fearvana. If you want to get deeper into that, you want to use the science of how to do this, turn it into health, wealth, happiness. And I'm sure you could have added some more things there because ultimately it's the ability to change your perspective.
Yeah.
When it boils down to it, I haven't read the book yet. I'm going to read it, but I'll bet you when I'm done, I'll say the same thing. You're teaching people how to change their perspective and utilize what most people crumble from into how to build from.
Yeah,
exactly. It's a powerful book.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, dude, I appreciate you coming by, man.
It was a pleasure and honor. Thanks for having me, bro.
Akshay Nanavati, folks. If you guys aren't following him on social media, go check out his Instagram. You are at Fearvana on Instagram. That's your personal one?
Yes, sir.
Go check him at Fearvana. He's also on Facebook, Akshay Nanavati fan, and Twitter. And you tweet? Fearvana Life, is that Twitter?
Fearvana Life Twitter, and then YouTube.
Do you tweet
Fearvana.
most?
Instagram's probably the most.
Me too, dude.
Yeah.
Instagram.
I don't do too much with Twitter.
All right, I'll go follow you. Appreciate you coming in. Listen, next time you're in town, hit us up.
Thanks, brother.
Bomb Squad, go out and get that book, man. Show this dude some support, and better yet, get yourself some support. I think this book's going to help a lot of folks.
I hope so.
Till next time, go out and rate, share, and review this podcast.